gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the universe. Here, in this great hall of the Signal Watch, are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled. Join us as we discuss all manner of topics across the multiverse of comic books, history, creators, storylines, movies, and more. The Signal Watch podcast presents Kryptonian Thought Beast, a comics podcast series dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey!
Jingle bells, Batman smelt, Robin laid an egg. The Batmobile lost the wheel, and the Joker got away.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Signal Watch podcast with another episode of Kryptonian Thought Beast. I'm back at Outlaw Moon, here in the Austin Books and Comics...
the center of Austin fandom, we call it.
With?
I'm Brandon Zern.
Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight, Brandon. I really appreciate it.
I'm happy to be back at this place I am at very often.
So, we're heading into the holiday season, and so we said, what could we do to approach this? So we figured we could talk about holiday comics in a wide variety of ways. So, when you think of holiday comics, what leaps to mind for you?
Well, the first thing I think of are like the old Walt Disney comics and stories and Donald Duck covers where you'd have, Donald kind of like on top of the tree, which is all bent over and leaning, and try to add like a star to it, and calamity happens. That's the first thing I think of. I also think of really awkward Santa Claus stuff, because there's a lot of it.
Yeah, and there's actually a long lineage of awkward Santa stuff going back to Golden Age Superman, like shoving Santa down chimneys and helping him out.
Decades of it. Decades. You've got Golden Age Flash and Wonder Woman, and who else is on that cover? I think it's like Hourman or someone.
Yeah, from the...
like peeking in on Santa doing his thing, and it's just like, this is just bizarre.
But it's always been a big thing, which is interesting. Comics were a largely Jewish enterprise for a very long time, but the audience was anybody and everybody, so...
I think a lot of them, knew how to make some money, and Santa Claus from the 40s through 50s was big money. He's like a major character back then, and today too, but I mean, he was more the Coca-Cola Santa that we all think about.
Yeah, these days DC anyway, and I believe Marvel still does this. DC puts out usually some sort of holiday annual that you can pick up, and they release trades of some of the best stories from all that, from both the past and current stuff.
Yeah, Marvel tends to do that as well, but DC is the one I always kind of like look the most forward to. Mm-hmm. Not that I haven't enjoyed the Marvel ones. There was a very classic one where it had a story with Santron, which was Ultron, who sort of like was reprogrammed to think it was Santa.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was fantastic. And I use that image almost every year in some way, shape, or form. But the DC ones always have a lot of heart because the characters have that sort of more, more holiday feel to them. There's more truth, justice, American way. When you think of Christmas, then... how am I going to pay my bills? And everyone hates me because I'm a mutant. And they're kind of more sort of like classic 30s, 40s, Golden Age feel, even in modern era.
Yeah, and sometimes if they can time it right, they'll do kind of a one-off issue of like Superman's got to get presents for the whole Justice League or something like that. And it's a light beat between otherwise, the usual tragedy and calamity of the DC universe sort of stuff.
Yeah, I always enjoy that. I always love a holiday cover, a Christmas cover, or what is the one that... There's a series right now that's working it out, so like to take place right at Christmas. I think it's Harley Quinn or maybe something like that. I don't know. It's something that I'm regularly reading, so maybe not Harley Quinn, but there's something that's taking place at Christmas, and they timed it because it was the Thanksgiving issue of Harley Quinn, and then they're doing a Christmas one too. And I just like it when that works out. And to do 2 of those in a row, I've never seen that, to go from Thanksgiving issue to Christmas issue.
I was gonna say maybe the Long Halloween was the one.
Yeah, exactly. That is the one where the whole spiel is to go from holiday to holiday, but to do that for like a good, a sixth of the year, that's pretty weird.
Yeah. But yeah, it's always super fun, I think, to take a look and see kind of what they've done over the years. There's always tons of clip art that you can dig around and find. I've been blogging for like 15, 20 years, so I would go through and find all these images of, there were records, the POW records back in the day would have like, light up the tree, Mr. President, would be like one of those stories of Superman, I guess, telling Jimmy Carter or Gerald Ford to light up the tree, I guess, at the time.
Oh, you used good stuff. I used crap. There's an ad with Spider-Man and Santa Claus selling fishing rods. I'm like, well, that's my Christmas card this year. And it's Santa wearing like a trucker cap too. It's
nice,
pretty bad. It's from the 80s.
Well, I do remember when I started reading comics, they would run at odd times, like Spider-Man telling you to like order your mail order Marvel comics. There was always some ad of Spidey in a Santa hat.
The Christmas stuff. I remember there one being Wolverine and Grey Hulk fighting their way out of gift wrapping or something like that.
That sounds familiar.
Ads.
Yeah.
Maybe Ghost Rider as well. It was a very 90s ad. I mean, I love all the really cheesy. Oh, the classic one that I love the most is the 80s. It's a snowy, a frosted snow window, and Doctor Doom is on the other side of the window. I can't remember if he's singing a carol or something, or just trying to get in for some Yuletide fun. But like that was another one of those subscribe for the holidays.
Oh, I think I remember.
You can picture
that.
it.
Yeah. We're gonna have to grab all of these images and post them up.
Have fun with that Google search.
But yeah, I also remember there was an issue of Batman where he sings.
Oh yeah, with the boys of the GCPD.
That's right.
He's running around. There's nothing going on. Gotham's quiet, so he drops in to visit the boys in blue, and they have a nice little carol round, which is just weird to see now, because it was like the really exaggerated art style too, because everyone's doing the oh la 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 kind of thing, and Batman's all into it. Like, well, I mean, I'm not necessarily all for the constantly grim and gritty Batman, but this is just uncomfortable.
I don't want to see Batman sing.
I mean, I'll go with the Batman smile, crack a joke, but singing, I don't know about that.
And I think the animated series kind of leaned a little bit into that. They had one where nothing was happening, and Robin's basically like, let's just go home. And Batman meets up with Jim Gordon, I think, at a coffee shop.
Well, Paul Dini was like kind of like the main guy, and Bruce Timm. They were doing the animated show, and more than a few times they would like go to classic, especially 70s era comics, the Denny O'Neil era, and use stories from that. And I always dug that, because I had read those comics, and to see them brought to the cartoon, plus it's like my favorite era of Batman, because it was before he was too grim and gritty to crack a joke. So I think that's just why that cartoon is probably the best representation of Batman that isn't in the comics.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll call it. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I don't disagree.
Christmas with the Joker. What a great episode, and that's the debut of Harley Quinn.
Is it really?
I'm pretty sure that's her first appearance in the cartoon.
Yeah. My memory of the episode is I'd never seen it before, and it came on when I was at home for Christmas in college. And my grandmother decided in the middle of that episode we were going to have a conversation. My grandmother, who never ever talked to me.
But
yeah, and I was like, okay, I'll watch this later. We're having a heartwarming family moment. I can turn this off. So I think I finally caught it like 2 years later in its entirety.
Do you remember the plot of it?
Oh yeah, it was fantastic.
It's one of my favorite episodes of one of my favorite cartoons. I love that episode.
Well, anything that has the Joker flying away on a tree, rocket-powered tree.
It's so good. And what a payoff at the end of that. It's just, as bad as Batman singing is, what happens to him in that one is almost worse.
Do we spoil it?
Nah! You find the episode.
Yeah.
You can check it out. Christmas with the Joker. It's really easy to find.
Yeah. And I didn't give anything away by the flying tree.
That's
the first 30 seconds or
that
something.
happens immediately.
But yeah, it's I can't think of Justice League. The cartoon did their kind of Silent Night thing that has the Martian Manhunter in it going home to visit the Kent house at Christmas, and you get to see the whole Kent family dynamic, very unfiltered, and it's hilarious.
Nice.
It's an absolutely great episode, and a little tear-jerking for John.
Aw.
But yeah, it's that's the only 2 episodes I can really think of they did across all the runs.
Yeah, for the cartoons.
There was I think there's a shopping episode where they kidnap Bruce Wayne, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy, and they use some of Poison Ivy's magic power to...
Was that at Christmas time?
I thought it was.
I don't remember that being Christmas, but it's been a while.
Yeah. I might be wrong. But yeah, those are kind of some of the things that really stick out at me. I can't really think across indie comics. I'm sure
there's a Crow Christmas issue.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's not the Crow. It's Caliber Presents or whatever their sort of anthology thing was. I think the first issue of that had maybe it was just Caliber Christmas. I don't know, but it had a Crow Christmas story, or maybe just the cover. I don't even remember. It's hard exactly. I'm 90% sure there was a story attached to it, but it's been a long time. I haven't had that in my hands for a while. There's got to be a Hellboy Christmas thing.
There's definitely a Hellboy Christmas thing.
Yeah.
So if you were to... Someone came into the shop and said, get me something great to hand someone for with a Christmas theme cover. We'll start there.
Ooh, okay, so it's going to depend a lot on... So are you thinking just cover, or are you talking about
just cover?
Story? Just cover.
We can do both.
I am a big fan of the issue of... I think it's an issue of Batman, or it's something more obscure, like DC Blue Ribbon Special. That's not the name of it, but something like that, where it's a split cover right down the middle, and you see all this stuff happen. I think it's crime stuff, or there's a guy with a gun to a kid or something, and then outside the door is Batman with a Santa hat and a beard and a bag of presents.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he's knocking on the door. I don't remember exactly what kind of trouble's going on in the house, but I remember it being sort of chaotic. So if you were going just by cover, that's one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. There's the Spectacular Spider-Man with Santa, sunglasses, and a gun.
Oh, right.
Another favorite of mine.
There's a Hitman cover, I believe.
Hitman's got sort of reverse of that. It's Santa with a gun in his face. Which is pretty intense to have on a DC comic. But there it was. Thank you, Garth Ennis. So those are some favorites. There's an issue of The Flash where it's got a bunch of Santa, a gang of Santas with machine guns and Bermuda shorts.
I remember that, yeah.
And they're attacking something. That's a pretty good Christmas cover. The previously mentioned Disney Christmas covers, I just absolutely love. They're just, to me, if you ever see me send out a story email during the holidays, it's got one of those Donald Duck covers on it.
I don't generally pick up a lot of the current Disney comics, but I do try and pick up when they do their big holiday thing every year.
Yeah, so they've released and re-released the original Christmas Parade special that was originally from Dell. And I don't read too much contemporary Disney stuff, but yeah, the classic stuff. I mean, Uncle Scrooge first appeared in Christmas on Bear Mountain.
That's right.
So that's where we got to see him, although he wasn't quite the same character that he would come to be shortly after. It was still Carl Barks, but he sort of got a feel for the character a little bit after that. less crotchety old man and more wizened old adventurer.
I forgot to mention, one of my very first DC comics was one of those Blue Ribbon digests. And it contained the wedding of Donna Troy and Terry Long.
Okay.
That was the big, you know...
Did he have a beard then?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. That dude, all I remember was that
I couldn't figure out
beard.
how old anybody was when I was reading it as a kid. And I was like, she seems real young to be... And then later I was like, she was real young to be... and then... But in the back of it, there was an issue of Outsiders. And it was pure DC. There was no explanation of who anybody was. It was just all these kind of split scenes of the Outsiders going about their holiday business. And I figured out years and years later that two of the characters must have been Metamorpho and Sapphire. But at the time, I was like, there's some bald guy with some lady, and they're Christmas shopping, and they're talking about how things are going to be different this year. And then Superman beat up Geoforce at the end.
Out of context, this is the hard to swallow comic.
To show him there's always someone stronger.
Oh, that's a weird lesson, Superman.
It was a really weird lesson. Batman had called him in to beat up Geoforce.
Oh, that's...
Merry Christmas.
That's awkward. That's super awkward. Take that, foreigner.
But I learned a lot about Superman's place in the DC Universe comics from that. Of like, oh, he's just that much stronger than everybody else.
And if you're in his inner circle, you can call on him to do crappy things.
Yeah, he'll come beat up the kid who's talking smack. Yeah.
Oh, that's actually kind of good. really humanizes Superman a little bit.
And of course, at the end, he like winks and shoots him the finger guns and flies off, so everything's okay. So,
nice.
But yeah,
Awful.
that was my first exposure to Batman and the Outsiders.
That was a weird comic. I mean, that was like, it's Batman and the Scrubs, It's like, who cares about these characters? And it turned out to be pretty good. But...
Well, that actually reminds me now, there's also an Outsiders issue where Looker uses her powers to basically do a Scrooge thing to somebody, so they can get him to like confess to his crimes or do the right thing. Or...
Is that from that 80s run?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it's Aparo does the art.
Huh.
He might have just done the cover.
I'm so glad they made her a vampire. What a weird thing to do, but all right.
Oh, I remember trying to look up what her powers were, and then it was like, and then she was a vampire, and I was like, all right,
sure, I'm in. And I don't know, the couple times they use her every decade, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that girl that had the really colorful one-legged outfit in Outsiders is now a vampire. Now she just wears black coat. As a model. What a great character. I always wanted to do something with her. Like, if I ever got a sweet DC gig, I would write a Looker comic that no one would pay attention to. Because her name is Looker, and that's stupid.
Yeah, it was one of those things that I think I was in, like, high school when I was like, oh, right, Looker. She's a Looker.
Yeah.
God, like, I never, all through middle school. Yeah.
Looking powers or anything. She doesn't have heightened sight.
Yeah.
She's just hot. Lives one leg uncovered.
She's the power of asymmetrical costuming.
That's pretty much it. I mean, actually, weirdly enough, I think a lot of Outsiders had that thing going on. I mean, you had Metamorpho. He had kind of like a weird costume.
Well, they did the same thing with Halo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was who was in my head. Is like, who is the really colorful, also dumb costume?
Oh, I loved Halo's costume.
Oh, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's way better than Mike Grell Legion character costumes, but
you just upset a lot of people right there.
I'm sorry. Mike Grell's one of my favorite artists, but those costumes, I mean, that Cosmic Boy outfit, fetish gear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sorry if that's your favorite.
Merry Christmas.
I learned, yeah. Happy holidays. So did I ever tell you? I might have even said it last time I was on, but one of my first comics, the comics that got me hooked on comics, was Ambush Bug's Stocking Stuffer.
Talk about it. I don't.
Okay, so I've not told you about this. Have you ever read that issue?
Yes.
Okay. It's brilliant, especially if you're like 6 years old and you don't know anything about the DC universe or Steve Ditko or life in general or any of the billions of things that
you can always find this comic for like $5.
Yeah, it's really easy to find. It's chock full. It's a huge, like 48-page issue, I think.
Yeah.
And it's got just so much bizarre Keith Giffen just going off. You got Night of the Living Dead toy thing. You've got just the weird, like, tough guy comic book character spoof of Santa Claus with that outfit, the red and white striped outfit and the little wreath in the center. Love that thing. I use that a lot too. I'll send a picture of that.
I haven't honestly probably read it in 15 years.
You should revisit it. It's a lot of fun.
It'll honestly be easier for me to buy another copy here than to find it in a long box.
I have probably 3 copies of it for that very reason. There's an Atari Force joke in there. It's just really bizarre. 1001 uses for a dead hookah. Just a weird little alien creature from Atari Force. And I didn't get any of the jokes in there. Like, I mean, using that as sort of like a Rosetta Stone would help me figure out the DC universe. Some people use Crisis, some people use Who's Who in the DC universe. I had Ambush Bug Stocking Stuffer.
That's fantastic.
Well, which also led to, like, the Ambush Bug miniseries,
right.
Ambush Bug and Son of Ambush Bug, which is also like a whole, like, okay, well, I guess now I know about Comet the Super Horse and every other bizarre character, and great.
That makes me think if there was anything ever with the Super Pets for Christmas, but nothing's actually coming to mind.
I can't think of anything.
I want a very Prody Christmas.
A very Prody Christmas. Here's a glop of unidentifiable white that you hope is snow, changing into things. I don't know.
So some of the covers I actually really dig when I walk in, because I see them, and you guys have the big box of Treasury editions.
Oh yeah.
Are those?
Oh, those
there's
are
some amazing covers on those for some of the holiday things. They really use the space.
This weird late 70s era Nick Fury in his like full head covering gear, opening up presents. Late 70s Shield costume was bad. It was really, really awful. And he's you can see his face. There's like a cutout for his face and his hair, which is dumb. But
I thought that was so cool because they use that in Alien Legion.
Yeah, well, and
I thought it was so cool in Legion.
I think there's places
there's
where
no Christmas in Alien Legion.
No, there's nothing good besides suffering in Alien Legion. But I mean, for Nick Fury, it's like who was always cool, like basically their James Bond character after he was their war character. It just looked really dumb. And it's even worse when he's like opening presents with the Hulk. What the hell kind of thing's that? Rudolph comics from DC. That's a thing I would love to see like republished.
Yeah.
Because there are a number of them. I mean, I think they pretty much came out like once or twice a year or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think they've ever been collected.
Yeah, it's not, I don't know what the copyright is on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, the thing is, it was like originally like a commercial jingle thing for
Macy's?
a department store. Yeah, something like that. And it's kind of... We covered it actually in a podcast last Christmas, but I've forgotten completely in the years since what the story was. But it's clearly fallen into public domain one way or another. The Rankin Bass thing is the Rankin Bass thing, but DC doesn't. You'd think they'd be able to pull that.
I would
together.
feel like they could publish it under the same Rankin Bass. Like, okay, here's your interpretation of this character. Like the character itself is in public domain, but these particular stories, this art, not so much. I don't know. That is pretty interesting, though.
But yeah, there are some beautiful Rudolph covers when you flip through there. But I don't know. I mean, I remember there being an X-Men Christmas story at some point too.
Well, there've been a few. One of the classic ones is the X-Men are all gone, and Kitty Pryde, and she's new to the team, is in the mansion by herself. And she's hunted by basically a xenomorph. I think John Byrne and or Chris Claremont just watched Alien, and so they wanted to put that in the book. I want to say that was a John Byrne call. I think it might even be
the Brood man,
because I think it's his last issue. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, this thing's like stalking Kitty around, and she's trying to fight this unstoppable creature, and it's so much like Alien, it's ridiculous. But there's that. But there's definitely... I mean, I know there's more X-Men. It's also sort of like, because I'm trying to remember what happens in X-Men series itself and then separate it from the various annual holiday specials they've done.
Yeah.
And I'm really trying to think of like a specific Wolverine Christmas thing. But
I can think of a specific, like, In the Snow one that was, I think, with the Power Pack in it.
Oh, okay.
But I think it was Katie Power in particular, but I don't think that was actually at Christmas. Maybe it was.
Is that the one where Wolverine's holding her up on the cover in an alarming, terrifying, which doesn't happen in the book at all. That's just sensational cover drawing.
Yeah.
Because us nerds care about this sort of thing, I did want to clarify. Actually, this is incorrect. The issue 195 does not feature the winter story. That's the story of It Was a Dark and Stormy Night, something along those lines. Wounded Wolf would appear about 10 issues later in X-Men, drawn by Barry Windsor Smith.
But it got me to buy the comic.
Yeah, that's fair. I think in like years later, like in the past couple of years, they did a take on it where Katie Powers holding up Wolverine.
Oh, that's great.
And like threatening him. I think it's for like one of their all ages things that they put out not too long ago. And that just cracked me up. That was awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I know that there was also a Justice League Unlimited. I don't know, very few people watched this show when it was on. Not Justice League Unlimited, Justice League Action.
Oh, okay. I think everyone watched Unlimited.
Yeah, no, Justice League Action was a show that was on for like a season. It heavily featured Space Cabbie.
Oh, really?
It was amazing. But they, for some reason, Cartoon Network did what they always do with DC shows and buried it at like literally like 5 a.m. on Saturdays. And it was 15-minute bites, and each one was more brilliant than the last. And they finally got to do the Christmas episode, and yeah, it was really, really good.
Huh? So. Space Cabbie.
Yeah, voiced by Patton Oswalt.
Of all the man, now I really want to check that out.
It's really, really good.
That's fantastic. Now, did you read... Okay, so this was in... I want to say it was the 2007 DC special, which I know is way too specific to try to remember, but it was the story where Superman is prepping to dress up like Santa Claus and give kids...
I know exactly
you know what I'm talking
about.
And Batman stops him and he says, "This is stupid. This is a waste of your time and your considerable power. You could be doing real good instead of this garbage. Mm-hmm. Fix yourself, man." Whatever he says, it's like basically of that ilk. I'm like, God, that is harsh. And Superman he agrees. Okay, yep. You're right. I should. And then later decides that, well, whatever, I'm going to go check on that family. And then there's Batman dressed as Santa. And I'm like, and he throws him a wink, like, haha, gotcha, Clark, which cracked me up. I'm already laughing when I see that. And then you turn the page, and this is beautiful, just glorious splash page of Superman punching out Batman. And I'm like, this is
it's a great comics Christmas gift to the readers.
I will never forget reading that for the first time and just my jaw hitting the floor. And I always, they have the little Elseworld symbol on that splash page as if to tell you, like, well, this didn't really happen. But I like to not picture that Elseworld on it. And but there's something with Batman's outfit too. Like he's wearing like an old version of the outfit, or like the TV, like a hip version of the TV version of the outfit. I don't, something bizarre about it. I remember, not specifically. But Superman just laying out Batman for stealing his Christmas idea. I mean, that's even better than beating up Geoforce.
Well, that actually causes me to remember the Justice League Unlimited episode. It was the storyline that was in there when we talked about like Superman and Martian Manhunter going home was the Flash and Ultra Humanite having to deliver like this like wrapping duck toy that all the kids wanted that year, and the Ultra Humanite wearing a little Santa hat on top of his giant head was just TV gold.
If y'all don't know who the Ultra Humanite is, it is a giant white gorilla-like brainiac creature
in fetish gear.
in fetish gear. That's right. I forgot he wears very bizarre lederhosen style leather.
It's a lot of straps and spikes, yeah.
It's very, very uncomfortable. That's funny. I need to research that. That sounds great.
But so if someone was to come into the store and just say in general, well, I want to go through some demographics of like, I know the answer for 80% of them is the Walking Dead section is right here.
Not so much anymore.
Really?
Well, I mean, the series is done, so
okay.
People are looking for other stuff now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone's a former Walking Dead fan or a Walking Dead fan who is looking for a new thing that they want to hop to this Christmas season, you wanted to get them something in that vein?
Oh, goodness. So that's a tough one because Walking Dead is very different from like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first thing that pops in my head would be other Robert Kirkman image books. Or if you're talking good horror, I would show them the new Joe Hill DC comics.
I think one of the titles is Basket Full of Heads or something.
Yeah.
Which I have a laugh every time I look at the Austin Books page of new comics, and that's on there. Like that's an awesome title.
Featured right up front. Yeah. That one was probably the one I noticed the most. But they had one called the Dollhouse that just came out last week. So, I mean, good horror comics are kind of few and far between. Horror is tricky because you don't control the pacing like you do in a movie. Mm-hmm. So if the reader's just zipping through it, there's not going to be all that good tension building. So very few horror comics do I think really kind of deliver. I'm
going to go ahead and pitch one that's not a horror comic, but we talked about last time, I believe.
Oh.
Why the Last Man?
That is a good one to recommend. And that one for years was just like the person who didn't know what they were looking for, that didn't know they liked comics or wasn't sure if they were into comics. That was the book that we showed them for a long, long, long time.
It kind of has almost the pacing of, I would say, a 3 or 4 novel series.
And it has more than any other comic I've ever read, even Walking Dead, the best cliffhangers just from every issue to every issue.
Oh, yeah.
I've ever read. Brian Vaughan is just a cliffhanger master. And that book delivered on it again and again. So that is actually a really good one. I mean, it also... So I'll ask someone what their favorite stuff is, what their favorite shows are. I might push 100 bullets on them. That's one of my go-tos for... if you're not regularly a comic reader, or maybe if you had just read Walking Dead and need something else... 100 Bullets is every kind of awesome story. Crime, drama, detective. You've got conspiracy stuff in there. A huge ensemble cast of characters that I have cast in my head 100 times. If someone in Hollywood threw millions of dollars at me and said, make this movie or TV show, or just cast it, I would nail it. I would nail it in one. I thought that much about it as it was coming out, and to this very day, years later. A lot of like that really good 2000 era Vertigo stuff. Fables is another one. That's just a phenomenal like adult read, and it helps because the characters are familiar. You've got a starting point. You're not completely up over your head when you start. I mean, they hit some obscure stuff, but this never in a way that it's confusing, or it's always like, oh, okay, I actually didn't know Snow White had a sister named Rose Red. There we go. Accepted and move on. Or that this character Jack is the Jack in every fable that mentions a character named Jack. So Jack of the Beanstalk, Jack jumping over the candlestick, all the Jacks is this one guy.
It was one of the comics when Jamie was really getting into comics that, yeah.
It's a perfect introductory comic for people that think they want to be in comics. Like they come in like, I hear about comics. I hear they're cool. What's cool? Well, because some people will go direct to Sandman or Watchmen, and I'm like, I love those comics. They're absolutely some of the greatest comics of all time. I don't necessarily think they're the best introductory comics. Especially Sandman. Well, I mean, both of them really, because Sandman hits you with some DC stuff right away.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
You can actually almost skip Preludes and Nocturnes and go back to it.
You almost sort of have to, a little bit.
I picked up Sandman way in the middle of the run and then went back and read the trades. That was one of the few things they were trade collecting back then.
I mean, it's phenomenal. And there's definitely if you just sort of like, with the advanced knowledge that the first volume is not going to be the best story, it's pretty much like, here, comic fans, here's something else, but we're going to ease you into it. But for everyone else, it's kind of like almost off-putting. Whatever. But I don't know, you get to like, I guess the first couple issues aren't so bad, because it's more like the sort of origin of why he is where he is and what he's doing.
Who he is and how he came to be.
Watchmen is like, I don't know. I know so many people where they come in and say, well, someone recommended Watchmen to me and it was really good. What else is this good? I'm like, well, nothing. I'm a big Alan Moore fan.
Sugar and Spike.
Yeah. Let me throw you some Carl Barks, Donald Duck. I know it is as good. It absolutely is as good. It's a very different feeling than Watchmen. But that's also, like, there's a lot of, like, comic deep dive history in that one. Especially...
Oh, yeah, so I read Watchmen in about my sophomore or junior year of high school, and it was through college, as I was really getting deeper into comics history, that I was like, wait a minute, I've been reading The Question for years. Wait a minute, you know.
Yeah, and there's like, and you know, they get into the history like, well, because there's real superheroes, the superhero comics were crap and no one liked it, so the pirates became a big thing.
Yeah.
And you just, I don't know. To me, and it's absolutely one of my all-time favorite comics, easily. I don't know if I would throw it at someone who's new to the medium.
Yeah.
But definitely Fables, Why the Last Man, 100 Bullets.
If someone's a Batman fan from movies and T-shirts and whatnot.
Year one, I absolutely, my first, okay, your step into Batman is Year One. Dark Knight Returns, I think is not, I mean, because it's the end of his career. I mean, you got a nice little Frank Miller bookend there, beginning and end of his career. That also suffers the Watchmen thing. Like, okay, what's as good as Year One and Dark Knight Returns? Like, Long Halloween's pretty good.
Yeah.
But I mean, now at this point, like, I also kind of start them off on, here's the first volume of Scott Snyder's Batman run.
Oh, right.
The Court of Owls.
Yeah.
And then you can read all of that. Then you can go into Tom King's run, which has been really good. Batman, more than any character, has a ton of like one-shot graphic novels that you can almost, like, based on a reader's personality, find the right Batman story for them.
Right.
Killing Joke is an all-time favorite, and I know that story has become more problematic over the years, but it's still just the perfect Joker origin story.
So if I come in and I'm looking for children, do you have any recommendations there? And I will say young kids, and then maybe 9th grade.
So that's a little out of my expertise. I tend to just ignore the kids section because George has that all taken care of. I never have to worry about that. I might give them the Adventure Time comic I did a story in. Actually, probably not, because I actually warn parents, like, my story's a little bit scary. It's a little bit terrifying, so...
I've forgotten the issue number.
22 of Adventure Time Comics, I think. It's sad that I don't remember that. I'm pretty sure it's 22.
I thought it was 12, so it's probably 22.
It's either 20, 21, or 22.
Okay.
But... yeah, it's I have a story. I told a story about the Lich, who is the creepiest character from that entire cartoon, or one of, at least, and Billy, who is Finn's hero, and it's spoilers, the last Billy story. So I saw this whole development in the cartoon, and they never actually explained what happened. And so I wanted to do that. And I also tied it into a very famous Dungeons and Dragons adventure module that also features a lich. So that was scratching a couple itches there. That was fun for me. And if you read that story again with that in mind, you're like, oh yeah, that is exactly what's happening right there. I don't give everything away though, so you can't use it as a cheat. I don't know. What do I give a kid? I give Bone is still the book I recommend to every kid.
And they're going to make a TV show of it. So
that's right. It's relevant again. I mean, not that it was never irrelevant, but it's about to be very popular again. So I'm super stoked about that. That book is fun like classic Disney. It's got the adventure of basically like Lord of the Rings level adventure.
Yeah, I was going to say even more than Hobbit. Yeah, a little more scaled up.
It's the quest, and it, like a lot of good manga, sort of grows up with the reader. Because the stupid rat creatures are just dumb to start off with, but then later on you start to see who they serve, and like, oh, that's creepy, and probably would hit kids pretty hard if it showed up at the beginning of the series, but later on you're a little bit more acclimated and ready for that kind of scare. Bone's so good. Amulet is a series that has been popular for years now with that age group, and just beautiful artwork from Koike, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Those are the same two books I've been recommending for so long. As far as like more contemporary stuff, I'm a little out of the loop, but those hold up.
There's a lot of adaptations of things that your kids might watch on TV. There's Scooby-Doo.
Dogman's really popular. Dogman by the creator of Captain Underpants, which I remember from when I started working here, and now he's got a new series that has been wildly popular. The Telgemeier books, Renee Telgemeier books, are a shoe-in for younger audiences. A Smile was the second one. What was the first one? Smile was the first one. Smile, Sisters, Drama. There's a bunch of them now, and that's a pretty solid recommendation. I mean, those are. You don't need me to tell you about those, though. You've probably already heard of those books. They're kind of
perennial bestsellers.
Yeah, she's sold a zillion copies. So,
I think for your Alterna 20-something friend, Kate Beaton books are.
Kate Beaton's great, a lot of fun, good gift idea too, because you could just pick those up and read them. They're going to do a new printing of, to get away from her for a second, Perry Bible Fellowship.
Oh no!
Did you read that?
Yes.
I was so excited about that. I own that book in like 2 different formats, and I'm ready for a third.
Oh, if I read any of it like in a row, I start to feel real bad about the world and myself.
It's so
good
and colorful though, and it makes me laugh. But yeah, his he really it has a tone that I just absolutely struck my sense of humor perfectly. So a new like giant version of that coming out. Perfect for your favorite 20-year-old nihilist, okay boomer throwing millennial friend. I don't know. Maybe they won't get the jokes. Maybe they won't like the jokes as much if they're sort of in that more millennial camp.
Yeah.
But if you have a Gen Xer on your list, by God, get them that. It's so good. And they'll actually read it. That's a solid one.
I'm actually always really surprised. My dad's in his mid-70s, and if I put a war comic down in front of him, to this day, like my coffee table's always kind of just swimming in comics. But I can see him spot a Sergeant Rock helmet like from 30 yards out.
Nice.
And also airplane comics. There's some graphic novels I picked up here. There's a Red Baron series and some stuff like that.
Did you ever have him read the Garth Ennis War books?
Yes.
Those are good.
Yeah.
Those are really kind of more true to life. style.
Yeah, there's a new one I've really been enjoying. If I can make a suggestion, it's not called Wild Blue Yonder. I don't remember what it's called now. They're big, pretty books, big hardbacks called like Out of the Blue or something like that.
Blue, is it like a British?
Yeah,
okay.
It's RAF. It's what he's been doing for yeah.
All right.
I'll insert it into the edit, whatever the heck it is. I have to go find those books, but I just pretty much see Garth Ennis, military. Yes, I will grab that on my way out the door.
As advertised, I did look it up. The comic is, in fact, Out of the Blue, written by Garth Ennis. So look it up. Other books include Battlefields and War Stories, and there's a few others smattered around. Pretty much anything by Garth Ennis is fair game.
I think the contemporary story I push at people all the time is Die, especially right now, as we were talking about before we started recording, the popularity of Dungeons & Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Die is this amazing Kieran Gillen book that's about my elevator pitch for it is, think of the old Dungeons & Dragons cartoon but for depressed 40-year-olds. Angry, upset adults. They were, as teenagers in like the 90s, they were whisked away into a role-playing game world by accident, and they spent 6 years there, and then 5 of the 6 came back, changed and a little bit like, we're never talking about this again. And these were like missing kids, so they go about, try to live their life, they separate completely, they go down different paths, and then like as they hit their early 40s, they get pulled back into this world by the one they left behind, who's now running the world.
Oh,
and he was like the DM before, and he had like created the world. But yeah, he brings them back into the game, and they have to resume their characters, and it's just awful for them. It's so good. and not only is it like, I mean, because he writes it with like game theory in mind and like RPG history in mind. So like the first one introduces you to the setup, and then the second one is basically a war book. Like the second issue is like a complete war comic. Like, okay, that hit me out of the blue. And then you get more story stuff, and he's doing like really tricky, fun, weird things and how he tells the story. In the single issues, it has all this great back matter explaining all these decisions, and like it's just phenomenal, and just knocked my socks off with the first issue, and every one has just been, I just shake my head and like, this is so damn good. If you got a crime fan on your list, Criminal.
Oh, yeah.
It's so
or a film noir fan.
Film noir fan for sure. Anything crime like Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino fan. Criminal just cannot be beat. That book is, and it's been coming out for years, and just the new story arc is just killing it.
It's one that I'll pick up in trade from time to time, and I just sit and read it cover to cover. In trade, and there's lots of trades of Criminal at this point.
I think there are. Well, they just did the 2 hardcovers, so there might be 8 now. And the story that they're doing right now is the first that has prominently featured the main character from the first one.
Oh,
as in his youth.
Okay.
So there's a level of world building that happens in those comics that is. Again, I'm gonna draw a weird parallel. It's like the Donald Duck stuff by Carl Barks, because he would like make mentions of characters and situations and things, and then like 10 issues later, there's another reference to it, or it builds on it, like it shows the character or something. Just world building, and just to an extreme degree. So you're mapping out like a whole family tree in your head from like multiple decades of these couple, families, crime families, and how everyone's connected. It's so good. Just so good. And the 5th one is an Archie story. Out of the blue.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah. The 5th or 6th one, I can't remember, but like one of them is straight up adult crime Archie story.
There's one, and you're going to have to remind me what the title is, but it's about basically Hollywood. And I want to say in like the 40s, and maybe that wasn't even Criminal.
Fade Out?
Fade Out.
Yeah.
If you have someone who's like listens to like Karina Longworth's podcast, you must remember this. Like that's a jump from a podcast to but it would hit them in their sweet spot. It's all that like mayhem and everything going on behind the scenes in Hollywood.
Yeah, they love that 30s, 40s era, golden age of Hollywood, but steeped in crime, Black Dahlia kind of noir. Yeah, and that's pretty much everything by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips is in that category. They've done, pulp villain stuff. They've done a little bit of everything, and this is coming from a career of doing superhero comics or Brubaker actually started doing like one of those like indie comic self-reflective kind of things is where he got his start, I believe. No, they're so good though. Every time they do a new book, I'm like, all right, I'm on board.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of stuff for a whole bunch of different kinds of people that we've thrown your way.
I think the important part really is just like asking, kind of get an idea of what your gift recipient is looking for, likes, what kind of movies they like, what kind of TV shows they like. And then you can just ask someone at your friendly local comic shop like what to get them, and ask different people because some recommendations are good, some are a little bit off. Like sometimes I'll hear someone recommend something like, nah, I wouldn't have recommended that. I would have recommended this, and then I'll like maybe follow up and like, oh, you should also check this out, because I just won't let it alone.
Sure.
But I gotta make my recommendations. It's good stuff. And as soon as we're done recording, I'm like, oh, I should have recommended these 30 other things.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do is on the site, I'll try and put a bunch of these down, and as Brandon, I guess, tweets me or whatever, messages me additional recommendations, I will add them to the site for your holiday recommended shopping list.
Nice. And you can tweet at me, you can tweet at Ryan.
Absolutely. Would you like to give your Twitter address, your handle again?
It's pretty easy. It's Comic Book Brando.
Excellent. And as always, I'm at Melbotis, Melbotis. So easy enough to find.
And what is that?
That was the golden retriever I had from 2000 to 2009.
I've always meant to ask.
Yes.
Now, why would you name a golden retriever Melbotis?
I didn't.
Oh.
I got Melbotis fully formed at age 2.
Oh.
And he had been named Melbotis, which I assumed was some, like, Greek thing.
Sounds like it.
And no, it was someone thought the names Melba and Otis sounded funny together.
Melbotis.
Yeah.
That's really bizarre.
It was, yeah. I didn't know that's how you spelled his name till I took him to his vet the previous owner had taken him to, and they handed me his vet record, and I was like, oh.
Melbotis.
And then I emailed them. But yeah, that's the legend of Melbotis.
That's great. That's a question I've meant to ask and never thought about it until just now.
He was the world's greatest dog.
Aww.
So, yeah. Pour one out for Melbotis right now.
Is that part of the fondness for crypto?
Oh, just dogs.
Just dogs in general. That's fair.
Yeah. No.
Dogs are great.
Yeah.
Cats too.
Yeah. Now, Melbotis was the first dog my wife ever had. So she went from never having had a dog to having a 100-pound golden retriever in the house, in our 600-square-foot house.
It's a step.
Yeah.
I was afraid of dogs as a kid, and then I got a dog, and now every dog is my friend.
That's right.
I spent most of yesterday with a pit bull just crawling all over me. And just like up in face, licking face, just very affectionate dog.
Yeah, I'm definitely a dog guy. Yeah, but that's definitely that's part of what I love. Someday we'll talk about Superman and the Super Pets on Kryptonian Thought Beast, and I'll go off on how that makes Superman a complete character. But anyway,
do you count Prody? He's in the Legion of Super Pets, I guess.
You got to count Prody twice, apparently.
Twice. Yeah.
So, sorta. But I think he's a weird fit since he's a sentient being who thinks things.
It is a bizarre. That's worse than sitting at the kids' table for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, go eat with the dogs in the kennel. Yeah,
hang out with the horse. Don't worry, that's a guy too.
Sounds like we have our topic for our next podcast.
Indeed.
All right. So happy holidays, everybody, and hit up your local comic shop if you're not in Austin. I don't know where you'd be, but go out there and give comics for Christmas. People love it.
Yeah, it's a great gift. It's awesome and fun, and people will think you're more sexually attractive.
Happy holidays.
Oh, Spotty Bell, swinging through Midtown. Oh, what fun to sling a web and take the bad guys down. Spotty bells, quipping all the time. Oh, what fun to swing around New York while fighting crime. Whipping through the streets of New York every night. Wrapping bad guys up in my web so tight. Crawling up the walls.
That about wraps it up for this edition of the Signal Watch, a production of the League of Melbotus. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoyed this podcast, we invite you to drop on by the Signal Watch blog, where you'll find write-ups of a wide variety of movies and more. You can drop comments on this podcast and let us know what you think. We do have a Signal Watch Patreon, and if you're so moved, we'd most certainly appreciate your support. We'll be back soon with more exceedingly high-quality content. So, until next time, God damn it, babies. You've got to be kind.